Hi everyone, good morning. Are you able to see me and hear me? Okay, that's great. Fine, guys. So in the previous class, did we finish up to RC6 or up to RC8? Did we do 7 and 8? RC8 finished. Okay, then today is our last class. Today is our last class. The agenda for today is that we are going to solve a few more difficult passages, mainly short ones, and we are going to attempt the 2020 UPSC paper and basically see how we perform. How whatever we have learned, we'll implement today and see how that goes. I will share my screen shortly. That PDF reader is installing some update. I'll share it within a minute. Please open that. Open the PDF on your own screen and come to class material 9. Please come to class material 9. Class material 9. Yeah, and please come to this one. Page number 250. Please come to page number 250. In the 250 page handout, or I think it will be page number 58 in the 80 page handout. Please come to this page and you will see that this class material 9 is a collection of 13 passages covering a total of 15 questions. 13 passages covering a total of 15 questions. We will do them in 3 sets of 5 questions each. Okay, done. Can you see my screen? Is everybody able to see my screen now? Okay, perfect. So see this page number 251. Page number 251. It will be page 259. Sorry, page 59 in the other handout, the shorter handout. So our first task for the day is to try the first 5 questions. They are covered in the first 4 passages. Okay, first 5 questions which are covered in the first 4 passages. And we'll try not to take any extra time today. Maybe we'll take like 1 or 2 minutes extra if required. Otherwise, we'll try not to take extra time. We'll see how well we're able to perform in the time that we should be taking in the exam. So today is basically drill for exam practice. You know, we'll get to see how we'll get an idea of where we stand. So we won't be taking much extra time. So solve passages 1 to 4. That is question 1 to 5. That is the first task. And for the same, your time limit is 10 minutes. probably we will not be taking any extra time. So this is your first task for the day. Passages 1 to 4, that's question 1 to question 5, with a total time limit of 10 minutes. So let's try these questions. Okay, please begin. Please start solving. Please start solving. Let's do these questions. Okay, so 10 minutes are over. If you have finished, please type done in the chat box. Exactly 10 minutes are over. And if you are still doing it, type it in the chat box and tell me, so I can give you maybe 2 minutes extra time. Is anybody still doing it? Okay, what about other students? Please type and tell me whether you are done or whether you are still doing it. Okay, most people are done, some are okay, fine. Please take 2 minutes more. Last 2 minutes. Okay, final 2 minutes. Okay, by now I hope everybody would have finished. So let us start discussing it. So passage 1, it says that what stands in the way of the widespread and careful adoption of genetic modification, that is GM technology, is an intellectual property rights regime that seeks to create private monopolies for such technologies. So stands in the way means creates an obstacle for proper adoption of GM technology is an IPR regime that tends to create a monopoly. He says if GM technology is largely corporate driven, it seeks to maximize profits and that too in the short run. Now that is why corporations make major investments for herbicide tolerant and pest resistant crops, because their aim is to maximize short term profits. Such properties have only a short window, as soon enough pests and weeds will evolve to overcome such resistance. And this suits the corporation because it's a short-term driven approach. It suits the corporations. He concludes by saying the National Farmers Commission pointed out that priority must be given in genetic modification to the incorporation of genes that can help impart resistance to drought, salinity, and other stresses. So this is what should be focused on. Currently, the focus is on herbicide tolerant and pest resistant crops, which have short-term windows, but the focus should be on crops that impart resistance to drought, salinity, and other stresses. So now what is the main message given here? Let's check our options. Option A says public research institutions should take the lead in GM technology and prioritize the technology agenda. So he does conclude by saying National Farmers Commission should change the agenda. From the current focus, the focus should shift to crops that have these properties, imparting resistance to drought, salinity, and other stresses. So A is fine. Let's check if we find a better option. Option B talks about developing countries raising this issue in WTO, which is off topic. So B is wrong. Then C, private corporations should not be allowed to do agribusiness in India, particularly the seed business. No such suggestion has been made that, private corporations shouldn't be allowed to do agribusiness. Now, option D, present Indian company circumstances do not favor the cultivation of genetically modified crops. This is also not indicated anywhere in the passage. So your answer should be A. Did you select A for this one? Question 1, did you get A? Okay. And if you have any doubts with any of the questions, please feel free to ask immediately. Okay. Then question 2, on the basis of the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. So number 1, the issue of effects of natural calamities on agriculture is not given due consideration by GM technology companies. The author believes that the companies are just focusing on pest resistant and herbicide resistant crops, which give them profit in the short run. That's why he's giving the suggestion that the NFC should prioritize incorporating genes that give resistance to drought, salinity, and other stresses, because he believes it's not being done by the private companies. So the first assumption is valid. The author believes this. Second one, in the long run, GM technology will not be able to solve agricultural problems arising due to global warming. This is an extreme statement. It's not given anywhere that GM tech is going to fail. So we can't say that the author believes this. Answer is again A, 1 only. So any doubt with passage 1? Did you get both the answers? Both are A. Both the answers are A for passage 1. Okay. Fine. Now, passage 2. It says most invasive species are neither terribly successful nor very harmful. Britain's invasive plants are not widespread, not spreading especially quickly, and often less of a nuisance than vigorous natives such as bracken. Vigorous means strong. Natives such as bracken. So he is basically saying that these invasive plants are not causing much damage. They are not widespread. They don't spread quickly, and they are not a nuisance. They are a smaller nuisance compared to the local varieties. The arrival of new species almost always increases biological diversity in a region. In many cases, a flood of newcomers drives no native species to extinction. So there is no downside of these newcomers. They increase biodiversity and they don't really drive any species to extinction. One reason is that invaders tend to colonize disturbed habitats like polluted lakes and post-industrial wasteland where little else lives. So they go and live in areas where anyway nothing much grows over there. They are nature's opportunists. So they grow wherever they can. Now, what is the most logical and rational inference that can be made from here? Option A, invasive species should be used to rehabilitate desert areas and wastelands of a country. Now see, there is no such suggestion that has been made that these species should be used. It is given that these species, these invasive species, they usually grow in these polluted lakes and post-industrial wasteland, but no such suggestion has been made as to where they should be used. So A is wrong. B says laws against the introduction of foreign plants are unnecessary. Again, no such suggestion has been made that the laws are unnecessary. C, sometimes the campaigns against foreign plants are pointless. So sometimes, yes, we can infer that because he's saying they are neither terribly successful nor very harmful. And they are a smaller nuisance than local varieties such as bracken. So, okay, sometimes the campaigns against them are pointless because he's saying they're harmless. So, C is the closest match. D says foreign plants should be used to increase the biodiversity of a country. Now, it is mentioned here that these new species do increase the biodiversity, but it's not given that these foreign plants should be used for this purpose. No such suggestion has been made. So, D is also wrong. C is the closest one. Did you get C for this? It's a bit indirect, but did you get C? Okay. So quite a few mistakes for this one. Well, D is wrong because D says that they should be used to increase biodiversity. No such suggestion is given in the passage. There is no such suggestion in the passage. That is why. It is a consequence, like they do end up increasing the biodiversity, but whether they should be used or should not be used is not given in the passage. Then passage 3. Diarrheal deaths among Indian children are mostly due to food and water contamination. Okay. Use of contaminated groundwater and unsafe chemicals in agriculture. Poor hygiene in storage and handling of food items to food cooked and distributed in unhygienic surroundings. So all these are the reasons for diarrheal deaths. There are myriad factors that need regulation and monitoring. So regulation is required, monitoring is required. So people need to have awareness of adulteration and ways of complaining to the relevant authority. So he's giving a suggestion now that these remedies should be available. Surveillance of foodborne diseases involves a number of government agencies that entails good training of inspection staff. Considering the proportion of urban population that depends on street food for its daily meals, investing in training and education of street vendors is of great significance. Significance means importance. So it's of great importance. Investing in training and education of these street vendors. Because many people eat food every day from these vendors. So now what assumption does the author make? Number one, food safety is a complex issue that calls for a multi-pronged solution. So yes, that is true. It has to be tackled from multiple angles because he says it involves a number of government agencies and good training of inspection staff. So the author believes in the first assumption. Second one, great investments need to be made in developing the manpower for surveillance and training. Again, yes, because he's saying here it entails good training of inspection staff. Entails good training of inspection staff. Third one, India needs to make sufficient legislation for governing food processing industry. The author talks about regulation, not about legislation. Legislation is lawmaking. There is no mention of making laws. So only 1 and 2. That is option A. Option A. Did you get option A? Okay, are you clear with it? Okay, I hope everybody is clear. And the last one, this passage 4, it says that the interests of working and poor people have historically been neglected in the planning of our cities. Our cities are increasingly intolerant, unsafe, and unlivable places for large numbers of citizens. And yet we continue to plan via the old ways. What are the old ways? The static development plan that draws exclusively from technical expertise, distanced from people's life experiences and needs. So it doesn't take into account these things, people's experiences and needs, and actively excluding large number of people, places, activities, and practices that are an integral part of the city. Okay, and excludes all these things, only draws from technical expertise. So this is the drawback of the development plan, which the author calls static. Static means unchanging. So the passage seems to argue means the main message of the passage. Option A, against the monopoly of builders and interests of elite groups. He's not saying anything like that. He's saying that these people's experiences and needs are ignored. That's all. Option B, against the need for global and smart cities. Again, it's wrong. He's not arguing against anything. He's arguing in favor of including the working and poor people's demands in the planning. So C says in favor of planning cities mainly for working class and poor people. That's also wrong. He's not saying that there should be the primary interest. So that's also not correct. And D says in favor of participation of people's groups in city planning. Yes. Because he's saying currently it only focuses on technical expertise and ignores these things. So 5 answer is D. So I hope everybody is clear with the first 5 questions. If you are, please type clear in the chat box. If you are clear, please mention it in the chat box. If you are not clear, please ask whatever your doubts are. Okay, now the next 5 questions are covered in passages 5 to 8. That is question 6 to 10. Again, you have a time limit of 10 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes at the end, but target 10 minutes. How much time did you take to solve the previous 5 questions? Like 10 minutes was the time limit, but actually how much time did you take? You took the entire 10 minutes or you took lesser time for the first 5 questions? Can you just type and tell me? I just want to get an idea how much time most of the people are taking. Okay, you took 7, fine. Took the entire time? Okay. What about other students? Okay. Okay, so we will follow the same practice again. Same thing again. 10 minutes time. Okay, so I guess almost everybody took the 10 minutes. So now you have passages 5 to 8. That is question 6 to 10. And you have 10 minutes time. Please start. Please begin. Okay, so 10 minutes are over. Now it is the last 2 minutes for the students who are still doing it. 2 minutes more. Okay, but 10 minutes are done. Okay, so now we can start discussing it. So this time, how much time did you take? For these 5 questions, how much time? Okay, what about other students? How much time did you take? All double digits only. Okay. First passage. Okay. Okay, so let's see this passage 5. It says that a vast majority of Indians are poor, with barely 10% employed in the organized sector. It says that we are being convinced that vigorous economic growth, vigorous means strong economic growth, is generating substantial employment. So that's what we are being convinced about. But this is not so. When our economy was growing at 3% per year, employment in the organized sector was growing at 2% per year. As the economy began to grow at 7 to 8% per year, the rate of growth of employment in the organized sector actually declined to 1% per year. So he says that economic growth and employment are basically not correlated. So what is the implication here? Number one, most of modern economic growth is based on technological progress. Yes, that is implied because it is not due to employment. Since employment is not growing at the same rate as the economy is growing. So the first one is implied, so that's correct. Now the first one is correct, which means option B is off. It can't be option B. Second one, much of modern Indian economy does not nurture sufficient symbiotic relationships. Symbiotic means mutually beneficial with labor-intensive natural resource-based livelihoods. Yes, because the growth is driven by, it's not driven by employment. So 2 is also implied. Third one, service sector in India is not very labor intensive. There is no indication about the service sector particularly and it not being labor intensive. They are talking about the organized and unorganized sector, not the service and manufacturing sector. So 3 is wrong. But actually, as soon as you see that 3 is wrong, you can eliminate options B, C, and D. So that is another trick for this passage. You'll get the answer is A, 1 and 2. And the fourth one, literate rural population is not willing to enter organized sector. That is also not implied anywhere that they don't want to enter the organized sector. So that's also wrong. Okay, this is also wrong. So 1 and 2, A is the answer. Did you get A? For question 6, got A? Everybody got A? Okay, fine. Then passage 6. India has banking correspondents who help bring people in the hinterland. Hinterland is the backward areas, the rural areas, into the banking fold. For them to succeed, banks cannot crimp on costs. They should not try to save costs. They also cannot afford to ignore investing in financial education and literacy. Banking correspondents are way too small to be viewed as a systemic risk. They're not, there's no risk from them. Yet, so in spite of them being very small, India's banking crimp means to save. What to say? To crimp on cost, to cut down, to reduce. Crimp means to reduce, to cut down. So yet India's banking regulator has restricted them to serving only one bank, perhaps to prevent arbitrage. Arbitrage is basically actions taken for profit, like buying something at a high price, at a low price, and then going somewhere else and selling it at a higher price. That is called arbitrage. So probably, these bankers are limited to only one bank so that they cannot make money by favoring one bank over the other. Efforts at banking outreach may succeed only if there are better incentives at work for such last mile workers. and also those providers who ensure not just basic bank accounts, but also products such as accident and life insurance and micro pension schemes. So that's what he's suggesting finally, that the effort to bring these people in the hinterland into the banking fold, that will succeed only if better benefits are given to these. Last mile means the final channel, like the people, the links in the distribution chain who reach the people. So these last mile workers, such as these banking correspondents, just excuse me, just a second, sorry. Yeah, for at work for such last mile workers, and also those providers who ensure not just basic bank accounts. So these people must be given better incentives. So what can we infer from this? Conclusion. Option A, efforts to bring people in India's hinterland into the banking system are not successful. The author has not indicated anywhere that the efforts have failed. So A is wrong. Then option B, for meaningful financial inclusion, India's banking system needs more number of banking correspondents and other such last mile workers. So yes, that is implied in the passage. That can be inferred, because he's saying that they're very small and banks need to invest money. Yeah, they have to be better incentives at work. So there are very few of them. So B is implied. C says meaningful financial inclusion in India requires that banking correspondents have diverse skills. There is no indication of diverse skills. He's saying that you should give better incentives for such last mile workers, that is these correspondents, and also those providers. So these providers are separate, who ensure basic bank accounts and also accident and life insurance and micro pension schemes. So these are different people, different from the banking correspondents, also those providers. So there's no indication of any diverse skills of banking correspondents. So C is wrong. And D, better banking outreach would be impossible unless each banking correspondent is allowed to serve a number of banks. He's not saying that it's an extreme statement. It's not implied that it is impossible until and unless each and every correspondent is given the opportunity to serve several banks. So B is the best option. Okay, B is the best choice. Did you get that? Are you clear with these? Okay. Then see passage 7. Political theorists, no doubt, have to take history of injustice, for example, untouchability, seriously. So they have to take these issues seriously. The concept of historical injustice takes note of a variety of historical wrongs that continue into the present in some form or the other and tend to resist repair. Tend to resist repair means it's difficult to undo these wrongs. Two reasons might account for resistance to repair. There are two reasons why this may be happening. One, not only are the roots of injustice buried deep in history, injustice itself constitutes economic structures of exploitation, ideologies of discrimination, and modes of representation. So this injustice is still embedded in the society, in the structures of exploitation, in how discrimination happens, and in representation. And number two, the category of historical injustice generally extends across a number of wrongs, such as economic. So there is injustice across various categories, such as economic deprivation, social discrimination, and lack of recognition. 3 examples are given of wrongdoings. This category is complex, not only because of the overlap between a number of wrongs, but because one or the other wrong, generally discrimination, tends to acquire partial autonomy from others. Autonomy means even if the other wrongs are resolved, discrimination remains. This is borne out by the history of repair in India. Borne out means this is showed by, this is displayed by the history of repair in India. So the question is, what is the main idea that we can infer from the passage? So let's see. Option A, untouchability in India has not been taken seriously by political theorists. It's not implied that they haven't taken it seriously. So A is wrong. Option B, historical injustice is inevitable in any society and is always beyond repair. This statement seems extreme because it's not really implied that it is always beyond repair, and that too in any society. It's an extreme statement, eliminate it. We are just talking about India here. Option C, social discrimination and deprivation have their roots in bad economies. The author is not saying that it's because of bad economies. It's a historical injustice. So C is wrong. And D, it is difficult, if not impossible, to repair every manifestation of historical injustice. Yes, that's what the author is saying, that it is extremely difficult. It is extremely difficult to repair it. So question 8, did you get D? Did you get D? Okay, fine. Okay. Then question 9, on the basis of the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. So, number 1, removal of economic discrimination leads to removal of social discrimination. The author has not really made any such assumptions. Rather, he says discrimination is acquires some autonomy. So even if you remove others, it remains. So we can't say that the author believes in one. So that's wrong. Second one, democratic polity is the best way to repair historical wrongs. This passage does not talk about democratic polity. So 2 is also wrong. So the answer is D, neither 1 nor 2. D is the answer, neither 1 nor 2. Okay, and passage 8, education plays a great transformatory role in life, particularly so in this rapidly changing and globalizing world. Universities are the custodians of the custodians means gatekeepers of the intellectual capital and promoters of culture and specialized knowledge. So education will play a transformative role. That's what the author is saying. Culture is an activity of thought and receptiveness to beauty and human feeling. So this is the definition of culture. A merely well-informed man is only a bore on God's earth. What we should aim at is producing men who possess both culture and expert knowledge. So this is the suggestion he's giving. Their expert knowledge will give them a firm ground to start from, and their culture will lead them as deep as philosophy and as high as art. Together, it will impart meaning to human existence. So this is the suggestion given by author, that education and culture both should be emphasized. The question is, on the basis of the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. Number one, a society without well-educated people cannot be transformed into a modern society. That would be an extreme statement. It's not as if it's not said that it cannot be transformed. He's just giving suggestions that this is what we should do. It's not really given that if you don't have well-educated people, you cannot transform. The opposite is not implied. And the second one, without acquiring culture, a person's education is not complete. That is true. He's saying a merely well-informed man is only a bore on God's earth. Together it will impart meaning to human existence. So yes, he does believe in the second statement. So B is the answer, 2 only. Got B? 2 only. Any doubts with this? If you don't have any doubts, please type clear in the chat box. Okay. Fine. Now on to the final part. Passages 9 to 13. 5 passages, each of them with 1 question each. You have to solve passages 9 to 13. That is Q11 to Q15. And you have a time limit of 10 minutes to do the same. Please start. You can do this. Time limit of 10 minutes. You can begin now. Please start. Okay, so has everybody finished? Is anybody still doing it? If anyone is still doing it, please text and tell me. Also, please tell me how much time you took. This one had one extra passage, like every question had a passage. You may have taken a couple of minutes extra. So, how much time did everybody take? Okay, so that's good. So you're able to do it in 2 minutes. Okay, so should be fine in the exam. Now let's see this passage 9. Soil in which nearly all our food grows is a living resource that takes years to form. Yet it can vanish in minutes. So this is the property of soil. It takes a long time to form, but it can vanish very fast. Each year, 75 billion tons of fertile soil is lost due to erosion. And that is alarming. It's very worrying. And not just for food producers. Soil can trap, so food is not the only problem that it can cause. Soil can trap huge quantities of carbon dioxide in the form of organic carbon and prevent it from escaping into the atmosphere. So, when soil erosion happens, all this carbon also gets escaped. So, which of these assumptions have been made? Number one, large-scale soil erosion is a major reason for widespread food insecurity in the world. He is not really talking about food insecurity in the world here. He's talking about the carbon trapped in the soil. So one is off topic. We don't know whether the author believes this. So one is wrong. As soon as you see one is wrong, your answer is either B or C. The second one, soil erosion is mainly anthropogenic. Anthropogenic means man-made, caused by people's activities. That's not implied anywhere. So 2 is also not a valid assumption. Then it must be B, 3 only. Third one says sustainable management of soils helps in combating climate change. So yes, because soil traps carbon dioxide. So if soil erosion can be controlled, it will lead to better management of climate change. So 11th answer is B, 3 only. Okay. Did you get that? 3 only. Okay. Then passage 10. Inequality is visible, even statistically measurable in many instances. But the economic power that drives it is invisible and not measurable. So you can see the inequality, but you can't see the economic power that drives it. Like the force of gravity, power is the organizing principle of inequality, be it of income or wealth, gender, race, religion, and region. So any kind of inequality, the reason is power. Its effects are seen in a pervasive manner. Pervasive means all encompassing, present everywhere, in all spheres. But the ways in which economic power pulls and tilts visible economic variables remain visibly obscure. Obscure means unclear. It's not clear how economic power pulls and tilts these economic variables. So what are the assumptions made by the author? Number one, economic power is the only reason for the existence of inequality in a society. The problem with this is it's an extreme option. It's not implied anywhere that it's the only reason. Because of that, one is wrong. Second one, inequality of different kinds, that is income, wealth, etc. reinforces power. Reinforce means strengthen. We don't know that. We know that power leads to inequality, but we don't know whether inequality further strengthens power based on the passage. Then the third one, economic power can be analyzed more through its effects than by direct empirical methods. Empirical means observational. Okay, empirical means based on observation. So, yes, because he says that inequality is visible, but the economic power is invisible. So, you can't see it. You can only see its impact, because over here, its effects are seen, but the ways in which it works remains obscure. So, obscure means invisible. So, yes, you can analyze it through its effects because you can't really observe it. So, only the third one is a valid assumption. The answer is B, 3 only. Hope it's clear. Answer is B, 3 only. Got the same? Any doubts with this? Any doubts with question 12? No doubts? Okay, then passage 11. Climate change may actually benefit some plants by lengthening growing seasons and increasing carbon dioxide. Yet other effects of a warmer world, such as more pests, droughts, and flooding, will be less benign. Benign means harmless. So other effects will be less harmless, or which means it will be more harmful. How will the world adapt? Researchers project that by 2050, suitable croplands for 4 commodities, that is maize, potatoes, rice, and wheat, will shift. In some cases, pushing farmers to plant new crops. Some farmlands may benefit from warming, but others won't. So it's a mixed impact. Some will benefit, some will suffer. Climate alone does not dictate yields. So there are other factors as well, which I mentioned here. Political shifts, global demands, and agricultural practices will influence how farmers fare in the future, how they perform in the future. So now what can we infer from this? Option A, farmers who modernize their methods and diversify their fields will be in an advantageous position in the future. That is correct. Because it's given over here that croplands for these 4 commodities will shift and some farmers will have to plant new crops. And agricultural practices will also influence how farmers perform. So A is a correct inference. B says climate change will adversely affect the crop diversity. We don't know that because it's saying that climate change will help some crops, but it will not help others. So we don't know what will happen to crop diversity. So B is wrong. Option C, shifting major crops to new croplands will lead to a great increase in the total area under cultivation and thus an increase in overall agricultural production. We don't know anything about overall agricultural production here. So C is wrong. And D, climate change is the most important factor affecting the agricultural economy in the future. Again, we don't know whether it's the most important factor. No such comparison has been drawn. So question 13, the answer is A. Did you get A for question number 13? You got A, and if you didn't, do you have doubts? Because it's not given anywhere that climate change will adverse crop diversity. He's saying that some crops will suffer, but others will get benefited. So we don't know whether climate change is going to negatively impact crop diversity. Nothing of the sort is mentioned. So we can't go for that option. Okay, hope that's clear. Then to passage 12, a bat's wings may look like sheets of skin, but underneath a bat has the same 5 fingers as an orangutan as a human or a human, as well as a wrist connected to the same cluster of wrist bones connected to the same long bones of the arm. So he's highlighting similarities between the arm of a bat, an orangutan, and a human. What can be more curious than that? More curious here means more interesting than that. The hand of a man formed for grasping, sorry, that of a mole for digging, the leg of the horse, the paddle of the porpoise, and the wing of the bat should all be constructed on the same pattern. So what's more curious or what's more interesting than this? So question 14, which one of the following is the most logical, scientific, and rational inference that can be made from the above passage? Option A, different living species have similar structure, having similar structure of hands is an example of biodiversity. He's not highlighting biodiversity here. He's just saying that there is a similarity in the construction of their hand. So this is not indicating towards biodiversity in any way. So A is wrong. B, limbs being used by different species for different kinds of work is an example of biodiversity. So again, the author is not focused on biodiversity. He's highlighting the similarity in the construction of the limb. So B is also wrong. C says man and the aforementioned animals having similar structure of limbs is an example of coincidence in evolution. He's not highlighting this as a coincidence. What he's rather saying is they're all constructed on the same pattern. So he's saying it's a pattern. It's not a coincidence. So D, man and the aforementioned animals have a shared evolutionary history. That is the correct answer. Because he's saying that they're built on the same pattern. So the answer must be D. Did you get D for this one? Got D for it? Yes, please type clear in the chat box if you have understood it. Or any doubts up to this point? Is everyone clear? Okay, fine. And the last one, passage 13. Around 56 million years ago, the Atlantic Ocean had not fully opened, and animals, perhaps including our primate ancestors, could walk from Asia to North America, through Europe and across Greenland. He's talking about that time period. Earth was warmer than it is today, but as the Paleocene epoch, an epoch is a time period, gave way to Eocene, it was about to get much warmer still. Rapidly and radically, he says. The cause was a massive geologically sudden release of carbon. During this period called Paleocene Eocene thermal maximum or PTM, the carbon injected into the atmosphere, so now he gives a comparison, was roughly the amount that would be injected today if humans burned all the Earth's reserves of coal, oil, and natural gas. So much carbon was released. The PTM lasted for about 150,000 years until the excess carbon was reabsorbed. It brought on drought, floods, insect plagues, and a few extinctions. So all this happened. Life on Earth survived. Indeed, it prospered, but it was drastically different. So it changed, it dramatically changed. Now, based on the above passage, what has been what assumptions have been made here. Number one, global warming has a bearing on the planet's biological evolution. Definitely, that's what he's saying, right? Life on Earth survived, indeed it prospered, but it was drastically different. So the first one is valid. So now answer is either A or C. So second one, separation of land masses causes the release of huge quantities of carbon into the atmosphere. He's not mentioned what is the cause of this release. So 2 is wrong. The answer must be C, 1 and 3. 3 says increased warming of Earth's atmosphere can change the composition of its flora and fauna. Flora means plant, fauna means animal. That is correct. Because he talks about life on Earth was different. And fourth, the present man-made global warming will finally lead to conditions similar to those which happened 56 million years ago. Again, we don't know what will happen in the future. The passage doesn't really deal with it. So 4 is wrong. 1 and 3. Correct is 1 and 3. C is the answer. I hope everybody is clear. And that brings us to an end of part 1 for today. Out of these 15 questions, how many were correct for you? How many correct out of 15 questions? Atlantic Ocean had not fully opened means that the land on either side was still connected. The land on either side of the Atlantic was still connected to the other. Passage 10, question number 12. Yes. So only the third one. Only the third assumption is valid. That's option B. Like, you want me to repeat the question or you want me to explain it again? Like, you missed out on the answer or you want the explanation? Oh, why second option is not valid? This one, because it's not given that inequality strengthens power. To reinforce means to strengthen. What's given is power is the cause of different kinds of inequalities. But does inequality further strengthen power? We don't know that. The passage doesn't talk about it. So, because of that, the second assumption is not valid. First one is not valid because it's an extreme option. The author is not implying that it's the only reason. And he's saying that, it's difficult to observe it. So it can be analyzed through its effects. Passage 5, want explanation for question number 6, first point. Okay. Okay. So passage 5, question 6, first point. Yeah, because it's not driven by employment. So if it's not driven by employment, it's implied that it's driven by technology. There are only 2 reasons, technology and employment. So he's saying it's not driven by employment, which implies that it's driven by technology. So because of that, one is correct. Is it clear? Okay. Okay, fine. So accuracy remains the same. You're getting 2/3 answers correct. 9 to 12. I mean, yeah, most of the students. Fine, guys. So now on the other side of today's session, we will take a look at the previous year's paper, and we'll try to complete it in the class. We'll try. So you can go ahead and take a short break of 15 minutes. Please be back by 11:10. Be back by 11:10, and we'll continue with class material. So this is a final session, and we are going to try the previous year's paper and see how many answers we end up answering correctly. So let's do this. Please go ahead, take a break. Go ahead, take a break. Take a break and come back. Be back by 11:10 sharp. We'll resume. Okay, so is everyone back? Time to resume the class. Is everybody back? Back from your break, please text I'm back if you have returned. Please text I'm back if you have returned. Okay, so see now for this one, normally we end up covering 15 to 20 questions in a class with the discussion. This one's got 25 questions, so we are going to go a bit fast because at least I want to discuss 3 of these 4 sections and attempt all the 4. So if you see the first set of 7 items, this is distributed across 5 passages. Yeah. 7 questions distributed across 5 passages. We are going to do this first set. So you have to solve passages 1 to 5. That's question 1 to 7. And no extra time. We will be taking 0 extra time. You have 14 minutes. So we can see whether you'll be able to complete it in the there's no time allocation as such in the exam, but in our target time, because the target is to attempt around roughly 60 questions. Yeah, so you should not take more than 2 minutes per question. So this is your first task. You have to solve questions 1 to 7 in passage 1 to 5. So please start. You have exactly 14 minutes. You can begin now. Okay, so time is up, including 2 minutes of extra time. Have you finished with this set of questions? Everyone's done? Is everyone done? Anyone still doing it? How much time did you take? We have taken a total of 16 minutes, 2 minutes more than 14. And how much time did you actually take? You timed yourself for this? Okay, fine. What about other students? How much time did you take? Finish this? Okay, fine. Let's discuss passage 1. It says that private investment in general is volatile and foreign private investment is more volatile because the available investment avenues are significantly greater. There are more places where you can invest your money. Foreign investors can invest the money. That is the entire world. Therefore, the responsibility of providing employment cannot be left to FDI. The current FDI inflows are volatile over time. So volatile means unstable and across sectors and regions. So there's no stability when and where FDI will happen, which is a necessary consequence of their search for the highest return. So, and he's saying it will be this way because they are looking to maximize the return on their investment. So naturally, it's going to be volatile. The adverse consequences are unstable employment and an accentuation. Accentuation means increase of income and regional inequalities. So because FDI is volatile. A probable positive consequence of foreign investment is the inflow of new technology and its subsequent diffusion. So after talking about the drawbacks, now he talks about the benefits. Diffusion means spread. So that is the benefit. We get new technology and it's spread in the nation. However, the technology diffusion is not at all certain because the existing state of physical and human capital in India may prove inadequate for the diffusion. It's not sufficient. Now, what assumptions have been made? Number one, relying on foreign investment in the long run is not an economically sound policy. That's correct. Because he's saying, right, that this creates unstable employment and accentuation of income and regional inequalities. So it's not an economically sound policy. So the author believes in one. Second one, policies must be undertaken to reduce volatility. See, he's saying that foreign investment is volatile by nature. He calls it a necessary consequence. So he's not saying that we have to reduce any volatility. Now, 1 is right and 2 is wrong. So your answer must be B, 1, 3 and 5. B must be the answer, 1, 3 and 5. But let's check the statements. 3 says policies must be undertaken to strengthen domestic private investment. Yes, the author believes that because he's saying we should not rely on foreign private investment. So 3 is correct. Then 4, public investment should be given priority over private investment. So there is no such comparison made between public and private, which one should be prioritized. So that's wrong. And 5, substantial public investment in education and health should be undertaken. Yes, because he says that the existing state of physical and human capital is inadequate. So the author believes that investment should be undertaken in these avenues. So did you select B, 1, 3 and 5? This is the correct answer. I hope it is clear. Any doubts? Doubts with passage 1? Any doubts with passage 1? Yes, please ask. They mentioned in other words, physical and human capital, that's education and health. That's a synonym. So they'll do that in the exam, they'll use synonyms. Okay, then passage 2. Many opportunities to harness the highly skewed seasonal and spatial distribution of monsoon flows, which occur in a 4-month period from June to September annually, have been lost. So here we talk about rainwater harvesting, and we have lost many opportunities. Since these few months account for most of the rainfall and consequent freshwater availability, the need for holding rainwater in reservoirs for subsequently releasing it for use over the year is a necessity nobody can afford to overlook. So because it only occurs for these months, we need to conserve this rainwater, we need to harvest it, and we can't afford to overlook this requirement. Climate change will continue to affect weather conditions and create water shortages and excesses. While millions suffer from droughts and floods, so this is the impact. Waters in the country's many rivers flow unutilized and are discharged into the sea every year. Because so many people are suffering from droughts and floods, but we have unutilized water. So which of the following could be the most rational and practical implications for India? So this question is a bit different. They're asking you could be. So based on the above, what could India do? So this is, they're asking for our opinion. Slightly different question. So choose the options that are related to rainwater harvesting. The first one is correct. Interlinking of rivers should be undertaken because it will help in rainwater harvesting. Second one, a network of dams and canals should be built across the country for proper distribution of water. Yes, again, this is related to rainwater harvesting. Third one, farmers should be provided easy loans for taking borewells. That's wrong because this is for groundwater, not for rainwater. Fourth one, usage of water for agriculture should be regulated by law. That's also wrong because the passage doesn't really mention anything about legislation, and this is not going to help rainwater harvesting. Fifth one, distribution of river for agriculture should be regulated by law. Again, this talks about law making, which is irrelevant to our passage. So the answer is A, 1 and 2. A is the answer, 1 and 2. Okay. For this one, answer is A. Any doubt with that? Doubt, please. No doubt. Okay. Then passage 3. People will invest in education whenever they are granted the economic freedom to fully enjoy its benefits. Again, this is for the obvious reason that the return on education increases as the level of, this is of, economic freedom rises. So when people have the ability to enjoy the economic freedom, to enjoy its benefits, then they will invest more in education. When people, thanks to lower tax rates, are allowed to retain most of the higher income that they gain from each incremental level of education, it makes eminent sense. This eminent is typo, it should be imminent, I-M-M-I-N-E-N-T. Eminent means prominent or famous. it makes imminent sense to invest in education. On the other hand, when the government decides to tax the higher income, so the comparison is drawn here, to tax the higher income of educated individuals at even higher rates, it makes very little sense to invest in educating oneself further. So when taxes are higher, then it doesn't make much sense because you can't retain the income. The same incentives apply to parents who decide on whether to invest on their child's education, on the children's education. So if the children can retain the benefits that they get from their education, then the parents will invest, otherwise they may not. So what assumptions have been made? Number one, lower tax rates in a country invariably translate into greater investments in higher education. Invariably means definitely. That is wrong. It's an extreme statement. What he's saying is that lower tax rates help in encouraging investment in education, not guaranteeing it. So one is wrong. Then two, investment in the education of children ensures their economic freedom. It is actually, the passage says it is the other way around, that economic freedom promotes, and that to not ensure. Economic freedom supports investment in education. Then the third one, economic freedom has, not that it's a typo, it should be has. Economic freedom has a positive impact on building up human capital. So yes, it does, because when economic freedom is there, people tend to invest more on education. That's what the author is saying. So only the third one, answer should be C. Answer should be C for this one. Why one is wrong? Because of the word invariably. It doesn't guarantee it, right? It just promotes it. That's why. It's not guaranteeing it. So the answer is C, 3 only. Lower tax must also ensure. No, nothing of the sort is given. What they're saying is that the return on education increases as the level of economic freedom rises. So when the tax rates are lower, people have a tendency to invest more in education. How can we conclude 3? Economic freedom has a positive impact on building up human capital. Human capital is education. So when people have economic freedom, what do? They are more likely to invest in education. So that's how we know that the author, and it's not about conclude, it's whether the author believes it. They're asking for assumptions. So what does the author believe? We are not trying to conclude the statement. So does the author believe that economic freedom has a positive impact? Yes, he believes that, because he's saying the same thing. In the author's mind, when the tax rates are lower, people tend to invest more in education. So the author believes that economic freedom has a positive impact. Got it? We are not trying to conclude anything. We are trying to identify the author's assumptions. I hope that's clear. So the answer is C. No, option 2 is not similar. Option 2 is the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. The author is saying that when you have more economic freedom, you tend to invest more on education. Statement 2 is saying investment in education ensures economic freedom. No, it's not as if you get economic freedom by investing. When economic freedom is already present, then people tend to invest more, and that too, it's not for sure. Got it? 2 is the exact opposite. So only the third statement is a valid assumption made by the author. So, well, then your answer becomes C, 3 only. Any other doubts with this, or is it fine? Got it? Any other doubts? No doubts? Okay. In passage 4, our urban bodies cannot possibly ensure sustainable delivery of water in our cities unless financing mechanisms are put in place. So we need financing for that. Water delivery requires heavy investment in collecting it from a natural source, treating it to make it potable. Potable means drinkable, and laying a distribution network of pipes for delivery to the users. So he's explaining how water is delivered in cities. It also requires investments in sewerage infrastructure and sewage treatment plants so that the sewers can carry the wastewater to these plants to ensure that no untreated sewage is discharged back into natural water bodies. So this entire portion that I've highlighted, this is the process of delivering potable water to urban households. He says if our cities were rich enough to meet the entire cost, this is cost, water could be delivered for free, but they are not. So the cities are not rich enough to do all these things for free. So if they're not doing it for free, it means you have to pay for it. So what is the most logical and crucial message conveyed by the passage? Well, option A, urban local bodies must recover costs through user charges. So yes, because it's given, if they were rich enough to meet the cost, water could be delivered free, but they're not rich enough. So A is the correct answer. B says urban local bodies are not efficient enough. He's not saying they're not efficient enough. He's just saying they can't do it for free. That's all. Option C, water shortage in our cities is a perennial problem that cannot be solved. It's an extreme statement. He's not saying it cannot be solved. He's just saying they need money. That's all. And D, in view of the water crisis in our cities, there is an urgent need to limit the population of cities. This is off topic. This passage does not deal with population control. So the fourth answer is A. Option A is the answer for question number 4. Question number 5, with reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. So number 1, rich cities only can ensure sustainable delivery of water. That's not true. He's saying other cities can also do it if they have the money. So 1 is wrong. And 2, sustainable delivery of water in cities means much more than supplying water to households. Yes, the author believes that because he's explained the entire process. So in his mind, it's not just delivery of water. It involves a lot of different processes. The second one is correct. And the answer is B, 2 only. Did you get 4th and 5th correctly? Did you get the 4th and 5th ones correct? If you have any doubts, please ask. Okay. If you have any doubts, please feel free to ask. Then passage 5. In India, agriculture still engages about half of its workforce, and about 85% of its farms are small and marginal. So this is the condition in India. Compared to China and Vietnam, which have experienced fast structural and rural transformation, India's story is of slow transformation. And as a result, poverty reduction in India was at a much slower pace during 1988 to 2014 compared to China and Vietnam. So he's comparing the growth and poverty reduction in India compared to China and Vietnam. India's poverty reduction was slow during 1988 to 2005, but during 2005 to 2012, it accelerated dramatically. So this is something different that happened, almost 3 times faster than during the earlier period. So the question is, what did India do during this period? So research reveals that the relative price scenario changed significantly. And in bracket, it's given by more than 50% in favor of agriculture in the wake of rising global prices. So the farmers were able to sell their produce at a higher price. This boosted private investments in agriculture by more than 50%. So this was the next consequence of it. And as a result, agri GDP growth touched 4.1% during 2007 to 2012, as against 2.4% during 2002 to 2007. So this is the positive impact. The net surplus of agri trade touched $25 billion in 2013 to 14. The real farm wages rose 7% per annum, and all this led to unprecedented fall in poverty. Unprecedented means never seen before. So because of all these reasons, which were kicked off by a rise in global prices, had an impact on poverty reduction in India. Now, what does the author assume? Number one, structural and rural transformation is impossible when farms are mainly small and marginal. The author does not believe that, because it has happened in India. Transformation has happened even though the farms are small and marginal. So one is wrong. Second one, a good price incentive can trigger investments in agriculture. Yes, the author believes this. That's exactly what happened here. Price increased and this boosted private investment. So second one is correct. Then third one, India needs to build value chains for higher value agri products like livestock, horticulture. There is no mention of that. So 3 is wrong. And 4, higher global prices of agricultural commodities are essential for India's poverty reduction. So yes, that can be implied, because the poverty reduction happened when global prices increased. So 2 and 4 are valid. Answer should be B, 2 and 4. Okay, B is the answer. 2 and 4. Seventh one, which one of the following statements best reflects the critical message of the passage? So that's the most important message. Option A, India should create large-scale off-farm rural employment. Again, this passage is about agriculture. They're not talking about off-farm employment. So A is wrong. Then B, India should create a large number of farmer-producer companies. This is also off-topic. C says private investment in agriculture should be given priority over public investment. No such thing has been mentioned. And D, inclusive agricultural growth is key to reduce poverty in the near future. That is correct, because he's talking about investments in agriculture and the positive impact of that. So the 7th answer should be D. All clear with these 7? Any remaining doubts with these 7 questions? You got them all. Then we have the next. Please ask if you don't have doubts, please type clear so that I'll know that you're clear. Okay, this is the 2020 paper. So if you have any doubts, please ask. Don't hesitate. I don't think there are any doubts. So, okay, fine. Let's move ahead then. And be careful with the numbering, because every set is labeled the same. The questions start from 1. The next set which starts from in India over the last decade or so, labor has been departing agriculture. This one, there are 5 passages for a total of 6 questions. So we are going to solve it in 12 minutes time. You have 12 minutes time. Please do it. You can start now. Please begin. Okay, so time is up. We have taken 12 minutes plus 2 minutes of extra time. Have you finished? And please tell me how many minutes you took. How many minutes did you take to finish this? Actual time taken. And is anyone still doing it? Okay, that's good. 11's fine. What about other students? How much time did you take? How much time? You can text and tell me how long it took. Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fine. So let's discuss these passages. So passage 1, in India over the last decade or so, labor has been departing agriculture. So people are moving out of agriculture, but is only going to construction and unregistered manufacturing, which are not markedly better jobs. So it's just going to unregistered manufacturing sector and construction sector, which are not any better. Services where labor tends to be most productive are not generating the additional jobs the country needs. So services are falling short. India will need 24 million or so jobs over the next decade, and the new sector, e-commerce, can at best close only half the jobs gap. Only those sectors that drive domestic demand, such as health and education, can comfortably fill the other half. So e-commerce is creating jobs, but it can only cover 12 million jobs. The other 12 million will have to come from health and education sector. That's the implication made by the author. Now, yeah, so which of the following is best implied? Option A, strong measures need to be taken to reduce the rural to urban migration of labor. The author does not talk about rural to urban migration, so I can say that A is off topic, eliminate it. Option B, the working condition in construction and unregistered manufacturing needs to be improved. See, he's not talking about what is happening in construction and unregistered manufacturing and what we should do. He is talking about creating jobs in health and education sector. So it's not C either. That service sector has been reducing the problem of unemployment, because he's clearly saying the opposite, that services are not generating the jobs that we need. And D says increased social sector spending is imperative for large scale job creation. Imperative means important. So yeah, that's correct. This health and education is the social sector he's talking about. So the first answer is D. Did you get D for the first one? Got D for the first one? Okay. And see passage 2. In India, the current focus, in India, the current focus on the right to privacy is based on some new realities of the digital age. Okay. A right is a substantive right only if it works in all situations and for everyone. So only then is it a proper right. A right to free expression for an individual about her exploitation, for instance, is meaningless without actual availability of security that guarantees that private force cannot be used to thwart this right. Thwart means to stop this right or to go against it. The role of the state, therefore, is not just to abstain from preventing rightful free expression, but also to actively ensure that private parties are not able to block it. So it's not just that they should not prevent the expression, they should also ensure that private parties are not doing it. So because of that, now we have to find out the assumptions. So the following assumptions have been made. Number one, state should have some institutions to ensure its proper role in a digital society. Yes, they need to have some institutions, because he's saying that they need to actively ensure. So the author believes that they have to have some institution. It's not just that the state should not prevent this right. They should ensure that private parties are also not doing it. So yes, the author believes they should have some institution. So the first one is correct, which means the answer is either A or C. Second one, state should ensure that private parties do not violate the citizens' right to privacy. Yes, that's exactly what's given here. Private parties are not able to block it. So correct. And three, digital economy is not compatible with the idea of not violating citizens' privacy. That's not indicated anywhere, that digital economy is not compatible with this idea. So 3 is wrong. So answer is A, 1 and 2. Okay, A is the answer. 1 and 2. Yes, it's given here that the state must actively ensure that private parties are not able to block it. How will the state actively ensure it? It means the state should go out and stop people from exploiting others' right. So they need to have some institutions. That's why the author believes the state is not a person, so state cannot do it itself. The state will function through some organization. So some organization must be present to actively ensure that private parties are not able to block it. So that is why the first assumption is valid. Got it? The state, state is not a person. They can't go and do it themselves. They need some institution to do it. Because of this word, actively ensure. They can't perform a passive role. Okay, fine. So answer is A. Then passage 3, one of the biggest ironies around water is that it comes from rivers and other wetlands. An irony is a paradox, a contradiction. Yet it is seen as divorced from them. So even though it comes from rivers and other wetlands, it is seen as separate from them. While water is used as a resource, public policy does not always grasp. Grasp means understand. So does not always understand that it is a part of the natural ecosystem. So efforts at engineering water systems are thus efforts at augmenting water supply. Augmenting means strengthening water supply, rather than strengthening the capacities of ecological systems. So he is highlighting the current scenario that whenever any effort is taken at engineering some water system, they focus on strengthening. To augment means to strengthen. They focus on strengthening the water supply instead of improving the capacities of ecological systems, because water is seen as separate from rivers and other wetlands. And this is one of the biggest ironies. So what can we infer? Option A, rivers and other wetlands should be protected under Ramsar Convention. This is off topic. He doesn't talk about Ramsar Convention. So A is wrong. Option B, engineering water systems should be modernized and further augmented. No, he's saying that we need to focus on improving the capacities of ecological systems. What is given in B is already being done, and he doesn't really agree with it that much. Then C, wetlands need to be reinforced as more than just open sources of water. Yes, their capacities need to be strengthened. So C matches. And D, water supply should not be free of cost so as to prevent its misuse or overuse. He's not talking about charging for it. So C is the answer. Question 3, the answer is C. Okay, answer is C. Understood? Has everyone understood it? That C is the answer. Okay. And then passage 4, asset allocation is the most important, not important, important investment decision we will ever make. And sadly, most of us do not give that decision the importance it deserves. We are adamant, adamant means very stubborn, about seeking predictability with our future. We tend to think of investing in risky assets as extremely volatile and value eroding. So that is our mindset. We also dislike fluctuating returns and the loss of control of investment. He says that we think our money is best left idle, unproductive but safe. And then he gives his opinion that there is no asset that is risk-free. So even though we want to keep our money safe, even if it is unproductive, the actual reality is there is nothing that is risk-free. We could lose our jobs, our homes can lose value, our banks can go bankrupt, our bonds can default, the government can collapse, and companies we chose fondly may cease to exist. So all these things can happen. But we cannot live life assuming that all these extreme events are waiting to happen and all at the same time. All these extreme forms of risks, we know, will not manifest at the same time. So the author is basically trying to make people understand that nothing is risk-free. Yes, bad things can happen, but we know that they will not all happen at the same time. So what is the suggestion given by the author? If you see this passage, he's basically telling people you can't keep your money safe and risk-free because everything has a certain amount of risk. So option A, distribute your wealth across different kinds of assets so that your risk would be minimized. He is actually talking against risk minimization. He is saying nothing is risk-free. So A is the exact opposite of what he is saying. He is telling people to take some risk. So A is wrong. B, risk-taking behavior should be a necessary component of your personality if you want to generate wealth. That is correct. He is trying to motivate people to take some amount of risk. Then C, while making investments, find a trustworthy asset management organization which would manage your wealth for you. Is he talking about outsourcing your wealth management? The answer is no. He's not talking about outsourcing your wealth management. C is also wrong. And D, you should know that investing your money is a risky business. So he's just pointing this fact out, but he's not suggesting. This is not a suggestion. The suggestion he's giving is that you should take some risk with your money. So did you get B? How many people got B? That is the correct answer. Were you able to get this? Fourth as B? Or you have doubts? You have doubts with this? Because he is not talking about risk minimization. He's against it. He's telling people to take some risk. He's saying you can't keep your money safe. Everything has risk. And he's not really giving any suggestion that you should distribute your wealth. Okay, and then passage 5. Although most of the GM crops cultivated now are genetically engineered for a single trait, in future crops genetically engineered for more than one trait will be the norm. Thus, biotechnology's role in agriculture and the regulation of the same cannot be understood solely in the context of the current generation of GM crops. So he's saying that things will change. Currently, these crops are engineered for a single trait. In the future, it will be for multiple traits. And thus, we can't understand the role of biotech purely based on the current situation. Instead, there is a need to take a comprehensive look, so overall look, taking into account various aspects, including socio-economic impacts, so that the potential of the technology can be harnessed while minimizing negative impacts. And he says, given the importance of biotechnology in developing varieties that can help, not can help, it's a typo, that can help in climate change mitigation. Mitigation means minimization and adaptation means change. So developing technology that will help in minimizing the impact of climate change and help us adapt to it, not using biotechnology as a part of the climate change action plan cannot be an option. So we have to use biotech. We can't stay without using it. Domestic regulation of biotech cannot be viewed in isolation of trade policy and obligations under various international treaties and conventions. So biotech domestic regulation is impacted by the trade policy. Both can't be seen as separate things, is what the author is saying. So the assumptions of the author, here there is a problem with the numbering. Actually, this is number 1. Okay, this is number 1. So biotech regulation is an evolving process. Yes, because he's saying in the future, we will engineer for multiple trades. Currently, it is being done for a single trade. So 1 is correct. Then this is 2. There is no mention of participation of people. So this is wrong. Then the third one, biotech regulation should take into account socio-economic aspects in decision making. That is correct. See over here, it's given including socio-economic impacts. So that is correct. And fourth one, again, there is no mention of political executive. So that's wrong. So 1 and 3, correct answer is B. Okay, there is an issue with the numbering, but did you select these two? This unnumbered one, first one, and this third one. Did you get 1 and 3? That is the correct answer. Okay. And the last question, the crux of the passage. Crux is the main message. So option A says precautionary principle is not given importance in current debate on developing GM crops. He is not talking about any precautionary principles. So this is off topic. So A is wrong. B, biotech is not currently used in climate change mitigation and adaptation mechanism. It is being used, just that in future the role will change. That's all. So B is also wrong. C, biotech's role is not confined to the current priorities. That is correct, because if you see here, it cannot be understood solely in the context of current generation, because in future it will change. So C is correct. And D says the negative impacts of biotech are not properly understood. He's not talking about any negative impacts of biotech. So sixth answer is C. That is for these 6 questions. Did you get them? All correct? Did you answer these correctly? Please type clear if you have understood them. And now we move on to the next set. Please type clear if you understood everything. If you did not, ask your doubts. Is everybody clear? Okay, now we do the third section. I think for the 4th set, I'll tell you the answers before the class ends, but we do have time to cover the next set. So let's do it. You have 12 minutes. You have 12 minutes. Please try these. This bank credit. This one, this set of 5 passages. Questions 1 to 6. You have 12 minutes. Please start. Okay, so time is up. We've taken 2 minutes extra as well. Has everybody finished? Everyone done with these passages? Done with these passages? Okay, again, how much time you took? How much time did you take for these 6? Okay, so pretty much the same. Where is good? It's good. So let's discuss these. So bank credit to the industrial sector has started shrinking. Its decline has been a serious concern, so a serious problem, as credit growth is essential to revive investment. So we need credit growth. The problem's origins lie in the incomplete reforms of the last 25 years. So what problem? The shrinking of the bank credit to industrial sector. An institutional change that should have followed the 1991 reforms should have been setting up of a resolution corporation for banks. So this is what should have happened. Then he says in a market economy with booms and busts, a boom is a sudden rise and a bust is a sudden fall. Banks should be allowed to set up and to fail. Today, we cannot shut down banks because there is no proper system to shut them down. Weak loss-making banks continue to need more capital. This is the problem is highlighting in India. And then they're asking us for an inference. So what can we infer from this passage? So option A, Indian banking system is not able to help the country in its economic growth. That's not true. The author is not saying that anywhere that the banking system is not able to help. B says economic reforms that started in 1991 have not helped. Again, there is no mention of expected levels, and it's also not given that the economic reforms have not improved the economy. All they're saying is banks should be allowed to set up and fail. That's the only thing. So option C, India lacks the institutional mechanism to deal with failure of banks. Yes, that is correct. That is mentioned over here. India lacks institutional mechanism. See over here, we cannot shut down banks because there is no proper system to shut them down. And D, encouraging foreign investments in our industrial sectors. And our industrial sector is a good alternative to this sector's dependence on banks for credit. Again, he does not really say anything about encouraging foreign investments. So the answer is C. Did you get C? Question number 1, did you get C? Got C? Okay, fine. If you have any doubts, please ask, okay? So that's C. Then passage 2. India has tremendous potential for solar energy. We all realize that we have to stop burning fossil fuels to meet our energy needs. So we have to make the shift. But certain renewable resources are still going through their cost curves and learning curves. So they're still reducing the cost and they're still learning to get the required amount of output. The Indian government has strongly committed to its targets of reducing emissions by 33% by 2030. And towards this, it has initiated a strong push towards gas-based economy and has also invested heavily in renewable energy. These are two things it's doing to achieve this emission target by 2030. One is focus on gas-based economy and two is invest in renewable energy. However, business houses are very means they are doubtful. They're skeptical of investing too heavily in renewable energy at a time when the technology is not yet ready. So there's still some way to go for the technology to become ready. So what is the most logical and rational inference that can be made? So option A, India's commitment to reduce emissions by 33% is unlikely to be achieved. The author is not saying that it is a far-fetched target. So A is wrong. B says India should import gas. There is no mention of importing gas anywhere. So B is wrong. Option C, getting renewable resources to market too soon may be costly. That is correct, because he's saying that they're still going through their cost curves. So the cost is still reducing. And D, India should put in more efforts in the exploration of natural gas. There is no mention of this, that they're not putting in the required effort. Or he doesn't even talk about exploration of gas. So the correct answer is C. Okay, correct answer is C. Did you get C for this one? Got C? Okay. Then there is another question with this. That is, with reference to the above passage, following assumptions have been made. So, number one, governments often provide inefficient and costly subsidies. He is not calling government subsidies as inefficient, so one is irrelevant. And two, India's commitment of reducing emissions shall be on the basis of gas-based economy. No, he doesn't believe that. He believes that it will be on the basis of gas-based economy and investment on renewable energy. So both. So third should be D, neither one nor two. Did you pick the same? Did you pick the same? Neither one nor two? Why B is wrong? Because it is not, it is on the basis of gas-based economy and renewable energy, both. This talks only about gas-based economy. So because of that, it is wrong. And sorry, I think I missed a question before also. Somebody had asked for the previous one, why option A is not valid. For this one, yeah, so it is not, no, sorry. Yeah, so he's not saying that it's unlikely to achieve it, right? They are saying that the government has targeted this. There is no indication that it is unlikely to be achieved. So because of that, A is wrong. And in this one, it is based on both gas-based economy and renewable energy, not just gas-based economy. So that is the reason 2 is wrong. And we should go for D, neither 1 nor 2. Got it? Okay, fine. I hope it is clear. Then passage 3 talks about genome editing. So genome editing is different from genome modification. Genome editing typically involves finding the part of a plant genome that could be changed to render it less vulnerable to disease or resistant to certain herbicides or to increase yields. So for these purposes, you change a part of the plant, and that is called genome editing. Researchers use molecular scissors to dissect the genome and repair it, which is a process that occurs naturally when plants are under attack from diseases and can throw up new mutations that enable the plant to survive future attacks. So, yeah, he explains the process of that is a natural process, this genome editing. This evolutionary process can effectively be speeded up now that it is possible to examine plant genomes in detail in laboratories and create mechanisms through which the relevant genes can be altered very precisely. So now you can do it in a lab. You can take these molecular scissors and cut the gene that you want, and this process, this natural process, can be very accurately replicated in a laboratory now. So the assumptions of the author. Question 4. Number 1, genome editing does not require the transfer of genes from one plant to another. Yes, the author believes that because he's talking about finding the part of the plant genome that could be changed. So it's in the same plant. So the author believes that you don't need a separate plant for this process. So one is correct. Second one, through genome editing, the chosen genes can be altered precisely in a manner akin means similar to the natural process that helps plants to adapt to the environmental factors. Yes, he's saying that this evolutionary process can be speeded up now and it can be done very precisely. So C is the answer, both 1 and 2. Fourth answer is C, both 1 and 2. Did you select the same? Got both 1 and 2? Okay. Are you clear with it now though? Now is it? Yeah, okay. Then passage 4. Many people understand the connection between solid waste management and health in terms of the consequences of unattended heaps of dry garbage, which become home for flies and other vermin. So people understand there's a link between solid waste management and health. However, there is another aspect that is not well understood. That is what happens when unscientific solid waste management combines with poor drainage and dumping of untreated sewage into drains which are meant to carry storm water during rain. So when these kind of malpractices take place, what happens is not very well understood. And he explains what happens. So the result is choked drains which are full of stagnant water breeding mosquitoes, resulting in the spread of waterborne disease. So this is what happens when we have unscientific solid waste management and it is combined with poor drainage system, and this untreated sewage is dumped into drains that are supposed to carry storm water. So this is the result. So what is the message conveyed here? Option A, in India, the drainage networks are not separate for sewerage and storm water. Actually, no, that is not the message. They are separate, just that people are dumping sewage into the drains that are meant for carrying storm water. So that is the problem. It's not as if the networks are not separate. So A is wrong. Option B, urban local bodies do not have enough resources and legislative authority. There is no mention of any legislative authority. So B is wrong. Option C, solid waste management should be integrated with the maintenance of drainage and sewerage networks. Yes, he's saying that both need to be improved. So C is correct. And D, bad management of solid waste and sewerage systems by our municipalities is the reason for drinking water shortages in our country, in our cities, sorry, not country. He's not really blaming the municipalities. And he's not talking about drinking water shortages. So D is wrong. The correct answer is C. Did you get C? Got C for this one? And the last one, passage 5, in part 3 of the Constitution, which assures people certain fundamental rights, Article 25 proclaims that all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice, and propagate religion. So that is given. What people fail to notice is that this proclamation is prefixed with the words subject to public order, morality, health, and to other provisions of this part. So it is subject to some conditions, with set conditions precedent for the legal protection of religious practices of any community. And he says that the closing words of this prefatory rider in Article 25 virtually constitute a subordination clause. So this part, subject to public order, this forms a subordination clause, placing other fundamental rights mentioned in part 3 over and above the right to religious freedom. So other rights become what to say, or rather they gain prominence over this right. So this right is a fundamental right subject to the maintenance of the others. Among those other fundamental rights is the right to equality. There should be before equality before law and equal protection of laws, assured at the outset and elaborated in later articles to mean inter alia. Inter alia means, among other things, that the state shall not deny equal protection of laws to any person or group of persons on the basis of religion alone. So religion cannot be used as a basis for discrimination. So what is the most logical inference that can be made here? Option A, state shall not interfere in the religious affairs of citizens. Actually, it's the opposite. State can interfere because it is subject to public order. So A is wrong. B says religious freedom under the constitution is open to state intervention. Yes, this is correct. Same thing, subject to public order. So it is open to state intervention. Option C, religious freedom is not covered under fundamental rights. It is covered, just that it is a subordinate clause. So C is not correct. And D, religious practices of any community are immune to state laws. Actually, they are not immune, they are subject to state laws. So D is also wrong. B is the answer. I hope you got B. Sixth is B. And yeah, that brings us to a close. I'll just tell you the answers for the last 6. You can solve it later. Last 6. Last answer was B. Religious freedom under constitution is open to state intervention. And these are the answers for the last set of questions. Okay, please make a note. Please make a note of it. These are the last 6 answers. Just note them as an answer key, and then in your own time you can solve them. Any doubts? And so we have done 19 questions now in this UPSC paper. Out of 19, how many were correct for you? How many questions were correct for you? Okay. How many were correct? What about other students? How many did you get correct? How many did you get correct? Please total up and tell me. Out of 19.
Sir, class over?
Class over, yes. How many did you get?